Very exciting indeed. Now, that trailer was obviously chock full of spoilers, and you're very privileged. You're some of a privileged few who've seen that trailer. So please tweet that you're here, tweet your excitement about Series 2, but don't tweet any spoilers from the trailer. Thank you very much. So, Sam and John, we'll start with you guys. Can you just set us up in terms of Series 2 and where it picks up?
Yeah, well, we pick up the show. Thanks. We pick up the second series just a few weeks after the events of the first season, and Niska is still at large. She's out there. She's in possession of the consciousness code, making some pretty important decisions about what to do with it. The rest of her synth family, Mia, Max and Leo, they are living together in secret, trying to sort of find their place in the world. And the other family in the show, the Hawkins, they're trying to move on, essentially, from the events of the first season, knowing what they know, and they're struggling to do so.
And Chris and Simon, you can both answer this one, I guess. How did the enormous success of the first series of Humans shape things going into Series 2? It was such a big, big hit for Channel 4.
Well, I think one of the reasons it was such a massive hit, apart from the fact that obviously these guys made brilliant shows, it was tapping into something that's firmly in the zeitgeist, and obviously the evolution of AI is a story which is not going to go anywhere. So our show basically tracks in parallel to that, and it just means that I guess what we wanted to do was sort of build on all of the themes that were established in Series 1, but also kind of break new ground. And I suppose the fundamental change for us is that the decision that Niska has at the end of Series 1 and going into Series 2 around whether to upload the consciousness code gives us the perfect springboard to start looking at the social dimension of AI and take it sort of out of the domestic world, which is explored in Series 1, and really kind of get into the effects of synth culture on wider society and scale it up so that it has more of a kind of global reach.
I will say you guys are all sharing mics because there's so many of you who don't have quite enough mics, so when you speak, if you could lean in as close to the mic as possible. Well, you've already seen a trailer, but because we're so good to you guys, we actually have a few more treats. Again, who would like to see a clip from Series 2, Episode 1? Amazing. Roll the next clip, please. Please do clap. We saw you there as Hester, a new sentient synth. What can you tell us about Hester?
Hello?
Everybody squeeze in, everybody squeeze in.
Hester is an industrial model. As you can see, she comes online in the middle of a chemical plant. So her background is very different to those synths that we already know and love, which makes for some fascinating new challenges, I think, for the characters that we already know, as well as you, the audience. She wasn't created in an environment that was loving and supportive, that nurtured her. So as soon as she comes online, things really hit the ground running for her. She's aware of the very threatening situation she's in. And so thankfully for her, she does meet Leo and Max, and they help guide her along the way. But things are very dangerous for her, and it's so all-consuming. She doesn't know what's going on. It feels like a malfunction. She's thinking and feeling and processing everything that's happened to her up to this point, because everything she's experienced is stored as memory. So it's been a wonderful, kind of all-consuming challenge to get her teeth into.
And what was it like jumping on board this amazing ship? Were you already a fan of the first series?
Yes, I was a huge fan of the first season. I love the show, and I think everybody in front of and behind the camera has done a fantastic job. So it's always exciting to become part of that new team.
And Ivana, we saw a clip there of Max and Leo back together, the bromance. What can you tell us about their quest in Series 2 and what they're getting up to?
I mean, it's mainly centered around collecting synths that have only recently become conscious and looking after them and trying to build a family unit and sort of teach them what we've learned thus far. The adventures take us all over the place, and we don't always agree on the directions we're taking.
So trouble in the bromance.
Yeah. I mean, there is a little bit of trouble in paradise, but I think as with any sort of relationship with people that you love and friends, you know, there's always going to be differences at some point, you know. And I mean, we left Max pretty much aged 10 in Series 1, the youngest of the synths and the most, I guess, naive and loving and happy. But I think because of his experiences in Series 1, I think he's learned from absolutely everything about the world and how things work, and has a lot more of a stance on what he believes in and what he believes to be right in the world.
I just love how calm he is at all times. It's like Whale's song watching him. It's so relaxing.
I haven't seen Series 2.
Oh.
But Series 2 does dig deeper into sort of the whole question about relationships, and we push that further in terms of the stories, not just with Max and Leah, but across quite a few of our characters. We explore relationships and love and those sorts of questions more than we did in Series 1.
Fantastic. Okay, we have another clip from Series 2, Episode 1, and in this clip, it's Bad Times for Joe Hawkins. Tom, things really do just go from bad to worse for Joe. What can you tell us about his journey in this second series and maybe his changing attitudes towards synths as well?
I was going to tell you he loses his job, but you just found that out. It all goes massively pear-shaped for Joe. So he's trying to save the relationship with Laura, and so they move house, they up sticks, they try to have a clean slate, a fresh start. But it's not necessarily going to plan, and things have impacted on the kids really badly. Mattie's at university, but still hugely involved in synth issues, still very much in touch with Leo. And Toby is having problems at a new school, and he's also having problems with identifying with people generally. And Sophie's got the same problem as well. She's missing Anita in ways that have a really bad impact on her mental health. So Joe's trying to wrangle all of that and keep the family together, but it's not going too well for him, unfortunately.
And we know that Series 2 is going to continue to explore the kind of growing impact that synths are having on society. Who would like to tell us about synthies and how they come into play in Series 2?
Yeah, so the idea behind the synthies are we tried to kind of explore more in Series 2 about what these machines would do to us as a society as they sort of penetrate deeper into every level of culture and become more sophisticated and advanced, and what effects they'd have. And we thought that the one thing they would do is there would be a sort of a growth in a subculture of people that identified powerfully with synths, that admired them, perhaps sort of fetishised them a bit, but really just sympathised with them and wanted to be synths. The serenity and the calm and the collectedness of synths. They're never frightened, they're never upset. And we thought there would be a burgeoning kind of subculture of people that lived as synths. And we meet one of those this series. She's a main. Do you think? Can I say who it is? Yeah. So, cheers, boss. Played.
But even the writers have to check if they can release spoilers.
Yeah. played absolutely wonderfully by Letitia Wright. She plays our chief Synth, and it's just a fantastic way to explore what we as people would admire and envy in these machines. And you know, we think that there would be quite a lot, and there'd be a lot to sort of desire in the life of a synth, really. So we go into that, and it goes to a very interesting place, we think.
It's a kind of advanced synth cosplay, almost.
It's very apt, isn't it? It's great to talk about it here at Comic-Con, but it's sort of, there is that costume element to it, but I think there's also kind of deeper things going on about how people look at synths and think, well, they don't need to worry about all the things that I worry about. They don't need to worry at all. They don't need to feel sad. They don't need to feel angry. And wouldn't it be wonderful to be a synth? You know, we think a lot of people out there would feel that way, and we get to really go into that story, courtesy of a fantastic performance by Letitia.
Fantastic. Now, Ruth, we left Karen and Pete on a slightly ambiguous note at the end of the first series. So, how much can you tell us about sort of their journey and their dynamic in series 2?
We pick up and they're together. So I think in series 2 it's kind of about exploring that dynamic. Obviously he knows who she is and what she is, and it's a big secret that nobody else has been privy to. So there are some issues with them coming together and figuring out what they are and what their relationship is, because they have no framework or blueprint for it. So yeah, that's pretty much the journey they go on.
Fantastic. Now we have one more clip from you, and this clip is even more exciting. It's not even from episode 1. This is from episode 2, which isn't even on this Sunday. It's on next Sunday. So can we please roll the third and final clip? Marshall Allman, Sam and John, can you tell us a little bit about those two new characters and how they come into play in series 2?
Athena Morrow is the world's leading artificial intelligence expert, and she's recruited by Milo Curie, who is the sort of Silicon Valley billionaire, to come over and work on a specific project for him. And she agrees, but she's lured by his vast resources, because she has a secret agenda of her own that she's keen to pursue.
Fantastic. Now those scenes are set in San Francisco, and Lewis Arnold's series director, can you talk a little bit about the more kind of global feel for series 2 and how much more expansive it is?
Yeah, well, I suppose series 1 for me personally was about each of the characters finding their identity within the family. And this year, obviously, we kind of want to explore, as I think Ivana was saying earlier, the idea of where these people belong and fit into the world. So they're all sort of going through that discovery, and as part of that, the world has expanded. So from that was San Francisco, we go to Bolivia, Berlin, and sunny Margate. So we go kind of all around. And the idea was to expand the world, to show simps in areas and parts of the world that you haven't seen them yet. So obviously in coastal regions, are there simps? What kind of simps? And then as far as Bolivia, you know, are we using simps in manual labour jobs, doing dangerous jobs? Are they on oil rigs? We haven't gone to an oil rig, but that kind of idea. So exploring kind of where simps are used, how they're used, away from just our sort of family and our family of simps, and away from that dynamic, really. So it's kind of an exciting opportunity to really try and broaden the world and hopefully let the audience into a larger world, and hopefully sell to you that, yeah, the simps are beyond, you know, the Hawkins family that we kind of showed you last year, and that it's kind of a bigger tapestry and a bigger world.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are going to cut to fan questions shortly. So if you do have any questions for the Humans team, there is a microphone there and one on that side. So please do queue up now with your questions, and we will come to you shortly. Just before we do that, would anyone like to give away any more Series 2 spoilers? Anything we haven't covered yet? Any teasers that you can reveal exclusively here at MCM London Comic Con?
Yeah, so Poldark's on Sunday, and if you watch Humans instead of Poldark, I promise you Colin Morgan will get his top off.
Exclusive breaking news.
He might not get his top off in episode 1.
You'll have to keep watching right to the Series 2 finale for the promised scene. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got 2 mics, so we'll start over here and then we'll sort of zigzag back and forth. So yes, please.
Hi. One of the things that brought me to the show was the sort of sci-fi sort of feel. But one thing that made me stay was it felt very dystopian. Was that intentional? That sort of dystopian technology taking over kind of feel?
We always tried, to be honest, to make sure it was a balance, that it wasn't a kind of a clear dystopia or a clear utopia, but we tried to balance it so that you would decide at home. We always had this image in mind of 2 people sitting at home watching it, one person saying, "This is brilliant, I'd have a synth," and the other person going, "What are you talking about? This is a nightmare." We sort of feel if you can get it right and hit that balance, that's when people really start to become interested. They can argue about it, they can talk about it. If you portray it too much on the one side, you have less to talk about. You obviously came down on one side of this fence, but I bet there's other people here that would welcome the dawn of synths.
Well, the classic question, who here would have a synth? Put your hand up if you would have a synth in your house. And put up your hand if you would definitely not have a synth in your house. So it's about a 50-50 split. That's interesting. That's interesting.
I know what they can do. Having watched Series 2, I know
That's true. After Series 2, your position on that may change. Yeah, over here.
Hi. So my question's for all of you, and in a weird way, he sort of touched on it. I want to know, during filming this, have you started thinking about what it would be like for human and synth relationships, and whether you guys would actually have a relationship with a synth, yes or no, and if so, why not?
When you say relationship, do you mean in the Joe Hawkins manner?
I leave it up to you.
Okay.
I don't want any more of that, thank you very much. Once was more than enough.
I like humans. I like real people. So I don't know why I'm talking about that with a robotic counterpart. But I don't know. I mean, our relationship to technologies are getting ever closer. You know, the idea that we have Star Trek-esque tablets nowadays that can communicate all across the globe and do all of our banking and all that sort of stuff, and it sleeps next to us on a nightly basis. I mean, that technological jump kind of blows my mind, and I think is on an upwards trajectory.
I think I wouldn't, because they never age. So you'd be like the oldest person in the world with my 20-year-old.
I think I would constantly be struggling with the fact that if it were a loving relationship, then it wouldn't quite feel real in the same way. So I think I'd probably not. I think I'd want something that feels very genuine. But like Ivana was saying, I think, you know, we do assign very human traits to technology, like if our phones aren't working, we'll talk to them. I remember when, you know, whenever you got a car, you'd name the car. It was a question of you used to call the car Bertha or whatever. And you're like, why are you naming these inanimate objects? But so I think we are getting closer to that, but I personally would struggle with it, I think.
I can't say because my fiancée is in the audience.
Moving on, if we just go here. Thank you.
Okay, hi. In the trailer that's been released, you can see Niska kissing a girl. So, like, how would you explain Niska's sexuality, and also how the other synths like experience it? Is it the same way as humans do, or like what?
Well, this is, if I can sort of answer the last question as well in a way, this really is the relationships series of humans. This relationships is the great theme. Almost every character either has a new relationship, human synth, human synth, all kind of permutations, or they have their existing relationship challenged. And in terms of some of the kind of romantic and sexual sides of things, we thought that the synths had not had a chance to explore their sexuality yet. You know, their lives have been so short and so strange and under so much pressure, and they've only been around for a few years, that this is the series where some of them, you know, they can actually start to explore who they are and what they want and who they like. and they might find some surprising things when they do. So we imagined it very much this was about a romantic and emotional awakening for those characters who go on that journey. But if you're interested in that side of things, this is the series for you, so I feel quite excited that you'll be able to watch it.
And over here.
I noticed in the credits that you did a lot of work with Frantic Assembly for the synth movement. I was just wondering, like, how much work you did with them, and like, I'm from a theatre background, so I'm obviously aware of them, and I was just wondering, like, what they did with you to kind of entertain, the idea of the synth movement.
Basically, we had a movement director called Dan O'Neill, who I originally, when we were setting up Series 1, I went to Frantic Assembly and asked them, because I felt that they had the right idea behind movement. It wasn't just about dance, it was about movement, and they work a lot with actors and movement. So we discussed it. They found a guy called Dan O'Neill who we met and really liked, and he sort of devised the movement himself. Really, he went away, came up with what he thought it should be, and then worked with the actors. So Dan, we found through Frantic, and he has the same sort of philosophy behind movement. And that's where it came from. That's what Frantic's involvement were. They basically helped me find Dan, and then Dan took it on, working with the actors to create the movement, basically. And Dan's with us every day, filming, basically keeping the consistency and helping with any new things that come up. Because every day, every scene, there's something new, a new piece of synth movement that needs to be looked at and thought about properly.
It's always things you don't expect as well. I remember Series 1 when Max was praying, and you remember the scene where he's praying and he has to stand up. And we were battling for ages to get you to stand up in an efficient, synth-like manner, and then Dan came in and was like, yeah, put all the weight in your bum or something, and you were like, oh, okay, that works. Yeah. But he's a great resource from the director's side, so he's brilliant.
Sonia, how easy did you find it nailing kind of synth movements in synth school? And Ivana and Ruth, how easy did you find it kind of slipping back into that after some time away?
I really enjoyed delving into it again. I rewatched the first season when I went up for the role and attempted to do my best synth impression around the flat, which made for good entertainment for my flatmates. So I was trying to cook like an eater and pick things up and stuff. But I then had a day of synth school with Dan before we started, which was really useful. And I was made aware of just how sophisticated the movement is, actually. There are those tiny little details that, unless you flag them up, you wouldn't necessarily notice, but as humans watching the show, you go, there's just something ever so slightly off and sort of beautiful and economical about that, but I can't quite pinpoint what it is. And the challenge of taking that on board as an actor was wonderful, because you're suddenly so aware of every single thing that your body's doing. So little things like their centre of gravity is ever so slightly forward, they don't breathe, so you have to lower the breath. Their peripherals are narrower, so your eyes move ever so slightly before your head. So yeah, it was great to also watch these guys as well and pick up the tricks of the show.
Yeah, I mean, it was lovely getting back into it. But it's sort of, movement based on energy economy. So no excess movement, so trying to preserve battery as long as possible. For someone who mopes around and flaps his arms around and skips around the town, it's a nice bit of control, and you select your every movement kind of thing. It's a great way to work.
Ivana is the king of the run, if you ask him.
I've heard there's the synth run, apparently you're the best at it.
Should we give it a go?
Go on, give it a go, go on. Can we see a little bit of the synth run? I'll be running on the spot. But...
So how does it work? It's kind of so the centre of gravity is low and moving forwards. Arms pretty much in front of you, pistons kind of through the air. So I'll probably go right towards the gang over there.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right.
Jump over it.
Yeah, then vault.
Don't blink, you'll miss it.
Yeah.
Very good. A synth showcase here at MCM London Comic Con. Amazing. Thank you very much. While Ivana returns, we will, yes, over here for the next question.
It's kind of just already been answered, but it was kind of about not showing emotion with all the movements and things. As an actor, is that really, really difficult? Because your instinct is to think, oh, this character is sad at this point, I need to have this tiny little bit of movement in my thumb. And is it, if you're being synth, do you stop that almost?
That's a brilliant question. It's really difficult. You kind of, I think everything that you do physically to display your emotion or tell somebody what you're doing, you have to cut all of that out. And literally in the muscles in your face as well, so you can't, twitch or, move your mouth or anything. So you just cut it all out and hope that if you're feeling it, it's going to come out in your eyes. And then you just leave the rest up to the camera and the audience. So that's a brilliant question.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we were casting the synths, it was never about who could do the best robot moves. It was always, we were always saying to whoever came into audition, do less, and it was just about whether they could, whether you could feel something by them doing nothing at all. So just through their eyes and through being able to just feel like you're seeing into their soul, whether they were right to play the parts of the synths rather than whether they were really good at robot moves.
Thank you. And over here?
I was wondering about the synthies, and they're very pro-synth, and our last series had the anti-synth even fighting ring. So I was wondering, how are they viewed? I mean, are they viewed as pathetic, like some of the people on the internet who identify as animals, otherkin, etc. are? So, what did the public think?
It's good actually, because this is what the Hawkins family is all about. This time is about how the three offspring deal with their sort of separation issues after Anita has been in the house. And for Sophie, she kind of retreats into herself. But for Toby's, friend at school, it's a positive sense of kind of armour. And for Matty, she completely engages with the world and takes it on board. And so it's interesting because Matty, although she doesn't identify with them, identifies with them so completely that she doesn't use any of that kind of armour. So those degrees are seen in the three Hawkins offspring and in Rini. And so it's not a case of pointing fingers and saying, you're doing something ridiculous. It's about different ways of identifying with the synths and how that comes out in their personality.
But within the school context, the synths are kind of ostracised on there, I would say. Would you guys agree? I mean, it seems we don't see them so much in the school context.
Yeah, no,
it feels like she's kind of an outsider.
Yeah, no, we thought that with all sort of burgeoning subcultures that haven't been around very long, they, a lot of people view them with suspicion and distrust and think, what's all this about then? I don't like this. We wanted to kind of capture that side of society that views new things with, mistrust and fear and derision. So we do try and capture a little bit of that, but we don't sort of hit that side of it that hard. We're much more interested in what's going on in Rini's head.
Marvellous. We probably only got time for one more question, so no pressure, but make it a good one.
Oh gosh, pressure. I was just thinking, could this be a warning, to our children or to our future, saying this could possibly happen? Technology is developing year by year, month by month. Is there a possibility even synths could become real and then turn human in that sense of humans? You get what I mean?
Yeah, we're all doomed.
Cheers.
On that cheery note, it is time to power down our panel. Humans returns to Channel 4 tomorrow night at 9 PM, but for now, please join me in thanking our panel. It's Tom Goodman-Hill, Sam Vincent, Jonathan Brackley, Simon Maxwell, Chris Fry, Lewis Arnold, Sonia Cassidy, Ruth Bradley and Ivana Jeremiah.